What's going on, good people? Adrian Homeboy Holmes here to welcome you to the new season of Super Gamer Book Club. New season? Where's the old season, I hear you say? Well, you can find all the episodes of the old season from our original book club host Zetch on our Patreon. And you can also find the newest episodes of season 2 with host me, ding, on Patreon as well. Me, Garrett, and a special guest every month choose a game and we go over it and talk about it in a shorter, more informal kind of setting. It's almost like we're just hanging out and telling what we liked about the game, what we didn't like about the game, so on and so forth. So we decided this is too cool to sit behind Patreon for all of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the older episodes and put them out on this free podcast feed for you guys. And if you want to check out the new episodes of stuff that we're doing, you can go and subscribe to our Patreon for only $1, and you get the brand new book club episodes when they come out. That's all I got for right now. I hope you enjoy the episode, and I hope you come to see what we have on Patreon. Take it easy and enjoy the show. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to what is the ultimate finale of this season of Super Gamer Book Club. And there is no way I was going to let this season go to pass without rounding out, some would argue, the greatest trilogy, even though it's not technically a trilogy. I'll say trio, that's better. Trio of games that have existed. I'm trying to put a better spin on that.
I mean, we had a whole discussion on last episode, right? The Holy Trinity of
That's right, we did. That's right.
Father, Son, Holy Ghost thing going on. Yeah, right. You can go listen to the last time we talked about a Super Nintendo game.
I can't remember exactly how we broke it out, which one was which, but they're all in there. They're all covered.
They're in there somewhere. That's right. I can't believe I forgot that. But we are rounding out this season with none other than the classic Super Metroid. Some consider one of the best games of all time. It is my favorite game of all time, and I can't wait to hear what the other gentlemen on the panel think about it. Starting with our guest, who we couldn't think of anybody better to do this with. Patrick, Mark, the Nintendo Cartridge Society. Fellas, thank you for coming on. It's good to see you again.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be back. I'm so excited to talk about this and to close out the Trinity here.
Yeah.
You know, after this, you guys can never come back on, though, unfortunately. So
that is your tickets.
I understand. Yeah, right. That's fair. That's fair.
Well, we'll just go now. I'll see you guys.
Okay. As always.
What you got to do is you just have to assume that we're not dealing with a Trinity anymore, and just like open it up, right? Like,
oh yeah.
I mean, if you do Three Musketeers, then you also have to factor in the other one, D'Artagnan, right? Mm-hmm. The fourth Musketeer. So that's when we do like Yoshi's Island or whatever.
See, this is what I akin to, like, when you go to like Catholic church, and then when you first go in, people do the quick,
sign of the cross,
the sign of the cross, just like an acknowledgement before you do anything else. Mm-hmm. That's what we're doing here. We're acknowledging the Trinity first, and then we'll go in and do the rest over time.
Also,
pay your respects when you come in.
Yeah, you think about that sign of the cross too. There are 4 stops on that, right? You go Father, you go Son, and then you kind of like mumble through Holy Ghost, doing both shoulders.
This is true.
We may need a 4th part of this Trinity.
Mm-hmm. We have to figure out. We have to do a debate on what people would consider the 4th of that. The 4th part of the trio. No, I'm kidding.
Who would have thought how educational this show would be about religion as well? Like that's what I'm really impressed by.
We're multidisciplined here, okay?
Yeah.
And as always, Garrett, my right-hand man, you've been with me throughout this entire season. Couldn't have done it without you, good buddy. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing very well, and I'm very excited to talk about this game that I previously thought I had played a little bit of, and apparently I don't think I've ever touched. So it's pretty exciting to not only play it, but then complete it, which doesn't happen very often as well with video games for me. So very awesome.
Now, before we get started, I don't know if anybody checked their mail this morning, but it seems like a message went out and it says that the last Metroid is in captivity.
Yes.
And the galaxy is at peace. Isn't that something?
Or so we think.
Or so we think
Mm-hmm.
is the plot of Super Metroid. Oh
Can
boy, where do I even start?
The last Metroid is in captivity, the galaxy is at peace. Surely not the first time that we heard like a couple words uttered by the Super NES, but like what an impression that made on me in 1994, putting this game in and hearing this voice speak to me in a complete, like the text is on the screen and I'm like, okay, last Metroid, whatever. And then the voice starts and I'm like, what?
No way. It talked? What is this, the arcade?
It didn't make sense. Yes. A full sentence too. Like I'm used to hearing like Hadouken. Fine, right?
Yeah.
A whole sentence.
The thing probably took up a quarter of the cartridge.
It's true.
Super Metroid finds Samus in the midst of another bounty hunt, having freshly dropped off said last Metroid with the Ceres basically the Federation, to study it because they think, just like with every kind of technology, that this can be used to benefit mankind. I'm doing the finger quotes for the listeners, but you know exactly what's going to happen with it. See Metroid 5. So she gets a distress signal from the Ceres space station shortly after she leaves, that everything is going awry, and she shows up, comes back fast as she can to find pretty much all of the Ceres scientists dead. She explores a little bit, and lo and behold, the space pirates are to blame. They've come to steal the Metroid and to try to harness its power and clone it for their own purposes, just like I said would happen. Your mission as Samus is to stop the space pirates and to secure the baby Metroid again.
It's so cool to me how this game picks off literally where the Game Boy game left off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was such a big Metroid 2 Return of Samus fan that seeing those moments from the end of the game presented at the beginning of this before you even start playing, like that idea of continuity in video games felt totally alien to me at that point. Like I'm trying to think of what other, especially like, Nintendo wasn't carrying over like, oh yeah, Mario just did this, so now we can move on to do the next thing.
No.
But in this, they were very much like, that happened, that's true, now this next thing happens.
I mean, when you were saying that, I was trying to think, even to this day, is Metroid the Nintendo series like the lone Nintendo series that has like strict continuity where one game follows basically the plot of the next? I can't think of another Nintendo series that does that.
I'm scrolling through the Rolodex and I'm not finding too much. I mean, there's things that have elements of other. I guess technically you could say Xenoblade, but
sure.
That's more recent. So
yep. And in select Zelda games do it, of course, like Majora's Mask from Ocarina,
but like as a series, as like a whole, like
same characters next to the. Okay, then no, you know what?
Then Star Tropics, of course.
Star Tropics. Star Tropics, the exception to the rule. But I just feel like it's just like one of many ways that like Metroid is so like, it is such a pillar of Nintendo and yet wholly different from what Nintendo usually does. It's such a an outlier, a cool outlier, but like a real outlier.
Yeah, well,
I guess
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I guess you could say Star Fox.
But Star Fox keeps resetting itself onto that same story, right? Like, Star Fox, Star Fox 64, and Star Fox Zero are all kind of the same story.
I was just thinking 1 and 2.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sure.
From that era. So, yeah. Sorry, you were saying?
With Metroid though, like it really is like every game that they've come out with, other than like Prime, which is its own separate thing as well. Like, yeah, you're right. Like it is kind of one continuous story from beginning to end. Like, do they have really any spin-offs other than like, isn't there like a Metroid pinball game or something, like anything like that?
Yeah,
like stuff like that.
There's a couple Prime. There's a couple Prime spin-offs. Yeah, there's Prime Pinball. There's Federation Forces and Metroid Prime Hunters.
Okay.
And the latter two are like multiplayer kind of games. But I do think that the approach to Metroid is sort of like the Disney approach to Star Wars, where they're like everything is canon, and there's no. And yeah, it maintains the single continuity. It's also what I was going to say before is it's interesting how like with the storytelling influences that Nintendo usually like pulls from, Metroid is so specific in that like it's all Alien. Like they just are drawing from Alien and Aliens and Alien 3. And it's kind of nuts how like dark and weird that is.
But it works.
It works, yeah. Like you make it colorful, and you're like, oh yeah, this could be a Nintendo thing.
That I wonder how. Do you think the Alien crew, I guess, kind of feels weird about that, having their work kind of like so closely modeled, I guess, to make Metroid off of? I mean, granted, Metroid is so small in comparison to Alien. Vast number of people know Alien more than Metroid, so I guess it's more insignificant. But
is there someone right now who is like considered the like I guess just Ridley Scott? Is he like the sort of like leader of the Alien thought collective, or like is there another?
No, it's mostly Ridley when you think of Alien. Okay. But I don't know. He doesn't seem like a game player to me. So
no, I guess they're fine. No
idea.
Yeah, I guess they're safe.
I bet James Cameron has played a Metroid game in his life.
You think so?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know. He seems like the kind of guy that's just like, I'm not having it if it's not pushing the boundaries of art in all its pursuits.
Let me give you a scenario. Okay. So he's been down at the bottom of the ocean filming the wreck of the Titanic. He's got to come up, but he's got to stay in that like depressurization thing for like 8 hours so he can exist at sea level again. What's he gonna do for those 8 hours? Play Super Metroid.
Smart.
Yeah, you think him and like Robert Ballard had a SNES set up and they were just like hanging out playing like Super Mario Kart while they decompress?
Yes, that's what I think.
I like that.
I mean, I would, so I can't really rule it out for him.
Right? So. Yeah.
For any numbers people out there, this game was originally released in 1994. March in Japan, and a short window. We got it just in April, so it must have all been a pretty quick translation. I guess there wasn't a whole lot to convert.
Well, the Metro. I mean, obviously there weren't a lot of Metroid games at this time, but Metroid has always been more successful in the West than it is in Japan. Mm-hmm. So I think it. Then and now, of course, I think they don't think about their home market, principally when they're dealing with a Metroid game.
It doesn't seem like they go for a whole lot of sci-fi over there. I don't know if that, at least that flavor of sci-fi like Metroid is.
Sure. I mean, like Gundam stuff, kind of space anime stuff. That's all over the place. But
yeah, I mean, but. Don't you think that's weird then? Because Samus could, in some sense, be classified as a mecha. She's in a suit. So,
sure.
So that's odd that it didn't catch on. I don't know. I guess we can go ahead and roll on then. We can take some top level stuff. I am especially excited to hear from you, Garrett. I want to know what you thought overall.
Yeah, overall thoughts. I again, having not actually ever played this before, I was really excited to jump in, and then immediately just, I don't know. So what's the word I'm looking for? Just like I don't know, there's this instant gratification with jumping in as well. Like, not only was I excited, like didn't know what to expect kind of thing. Like, I've played the Prime games, I played newer stuff, not a lot of the older stuff. And so for me, I'm like, all right, what is this going to be like on Super Nintendo? Like, trying to even picture that in my head, how it's going to feel to play and stuff like that. There's only so much they can do with the 2D graphics and whatnot. Because again, I've mainly been a Prime player, which is all 3D, GameCube and up. So I just pleasantly surprised jumping in there, and I don't know, there's this elements to it that I was not expecting and that I really enjoyed. Like so many of the bosses and in the moments and stuff, I'm like, oh, there's some serious like horror flavors here. Like, I love that. Like, I love how Nintendo, like, to me, I'm like, they went super dark on this. Like, and like, not to say there's not like dark stuff in the newer, or like in the Prime games and stuff, but I don't know. There's something about just some of the bosses are like extremely grotesque, in like their design and look and stuff. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm all about this. Like, I like this. So, so just top level stuff. Like, I really enjoyed my time playing, and was just, pleasantly surprised with what I was greeted with. Cause I wasn't sure what I was going to get. I was like, I don't know any of these enemies, any of these bosses, the world or anything, from this time period. And, I was happy about it. It was, where like the other two games I'd kind of dabbled in a little bit, and I kind of knew a little bit what the world was going to look like when I got into it. And this one was interesting for being such a big name, and a name even in my head that I was like, if someone would have asked me if I played, I'm like, oh yeah, maybe once or twice, or like a little bit. I've played a little bit of it here and there. I was like, oh shoot, like, this is crazy. How have I gone, so long without touching this game? Like, so yeah. I'm glad I finally played it, and excited to talk more about detailed stuff in a bit here.
Well, that's good. It seems like you must have turned a corner then, because I remember when I was first talking to you about it, you seemed a little bit iffy. So that's interesting. Was there a certain point, or was it after you finished and you came back and thought about all of it, or?
No. So initially it was, I'm bad at video games. I say this all the time on our show. Like, I'm very bad at video games. And so a game that expects a lot from you to just find things on your own, it was difficult at first. So initially what was keeping me in was like the world and just the general aesthetic of everything, and like the enemy designs, and the combat feels good. And so a lot of the gameplay and stuff like that, like, I enjoyed, but it was like, oh man, the actual, like, how do I find these abilities? How do I do things? As with the previous Nintendo games we've played, like, I had to break out a walkthrough here or there to find something, because I'm like, okay, there's a blank spot. That was going to be my question. Yeah, there's a blank spot on my ability list, and I feel like I'm missing something, like, or I can't access this one area. Like, what's going on? And kind of looking stuff up, or even like they. Again, I don't know how much you want me to get into it now, but like gameplay wise, like the what's it called? The something shine spark, and then wall jump, like, they don't teach you how to do that, but there's a couple areas I'm like, there's some way, like, how do I get in here? And when I look at the walkthrough, like, oh, just do shine spark, or just do wall jump. I'm like, how do I do that? So I'd like YouTube tutorials on how to do these things. I'm like, oh, why didn't they tell me how to do this? Like, seems like a main ability.
Those two abilities, they do teach you how to do them, but in a super obtuse way. Okay. So the shine spark, like, jump, right, with there's a bird in a pit that you get, like, trapped in this pit. He's like a big green ostrich thing, and he demonstrates how to do it. And there's no like text on screen, and there's no spoken dialogue or anything. And you just have to like copy what he does. Yeah. And then the wall jump, there's like 3 little green monkeys that teach you how to do it. In much the same way. It's another like pit that you fall down.
But there's no like or to my memory anyways, there's no like on screen like
nothing
saying like this is how the button should be pressed in order to do it. So even if you're I know that I need to do this, like, the wall jump is not intuitive. The way that they ask you to do it, where you have to like it just works different from Mario, I guess I should say, which is
Yeah.
how I expect
Right.
a wall jump to work, where you have to like jump and then press the direction you want to jump and then press the jump button. You have to do it all like pretty quickly. And that I feel I guess I'm not saying this because like Garrett, I'm 100% in the same boat. I did not come to Super Metroid until I didn't play it all the way through until like 2020, I think.
Wow.
When
Okay.
on our show we did like a SNES retro month, just as COVID started, and that was the first time that I played through all of Super Metroid, and I 100% used like a guide for so much of it because I like Super Metroid a lot. And I appreciate Super Metroid a lot, but I hate being lost in video games. And I would echo what you said, Garrett. Like, I don't think I'm very good at video games. Streaming me playing a video game just sounds like such a nightmare to me because I'm so bad at them. Like, I don't want to see other people. I don't want other people to have to like watch, like painfully watch me struggle through a game. And so I used a guide like up and down Super Metroid. And I don't think I would necessarily have that much fun if I didn't use one. But that's just my like personal experience with it.
Yeah, it's interesting with those. I don't know if I saw another character in the whole game that wasn't an enemy. So I like, are those characters missable? Like I don't remember any monkeys or any
totally
bird,
missable.
but-
Yeah, they're tucked away, and
That's
they're all green. And
Okay.
if you encounter them throughout the course of the game, you will also see them, or you can encounter them as you are escaping the planet during like the self-destruct, and they escape the planet with you. So like,
okay,
Samus
so I murdered
makes-
a bunch of people. Didn't even
I was
realize
getting
it.
ready to say,
All
you
right,
murdered.
cool. Left them for dead. All right, cool.
I
back.
think that speaks to Mark. I think I'm a lot different than you are in that respect. Just those animals alone, I think, speaks to the solitary nature of this game.
Mhm.
This is one of the kinds of games where it just drops you in there, and you know you're by yourself. Figure it out. And I think for me that I don't know, that sense of being lost or knowing that you can defend yourself, right? So I can go and look and figure things out. And if I ever got into a scrap, I got my arm cannon, I got my abilities, I can figure it out, you know? And I think recently one of the biggest examples of that was the Breath of the Wild series, which is the same thing to me, is where they drop you in the world, they don't tell you anything, go figure it out. And I think that those two really struck a chord with me as well. But that is a huge hallmark of the Metroid series, is you're pretty much traversing whatever area until I think like Prime 3, when they brought all those other bounty hunters in there. But normally it's you are exploring this place on your own, and it's you're supposed to feel alone. You're supposed to feel just like Ripley. You're supposed to feel by yourself on the I can't remember the name of the ship.
Nostromo.
Nostromo, yeah.
Thank you. So I can understand if that's not your bag, why you would like feeling different about it. But that's just kind of how the Metroid series has always worked.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I feel indifferent about it. I think like it changed my experience of the game just because I like personally get like so frustrated when I'm lost that like that like figure it out experience. I need a guide to get me through it. I think what like super. So it is weird because it's like that's not my experience with the game, where like being lost, because I have been like guided through it every time I've played it. But I feel like it's such like a remarkable package. Like the fact like it's so stealthily cool. Like the fact that like, you know, Garrett didn't encounter those animals, or, you know, like there are these like missable aspects to it, but it's not like showy about it. It's just like, you know, it's just quietly like revolutionary in that way. You know, there's just all these different things that you could do if you take the time, if you like really explore, or you can have a completely different experience and just kind of like go straight through it, you know, follow a guide, go exactly where you need to go. And the fact that it can do both of those things and do it like so well is really cool.
Yeah, well, and I want to like tag onto that, like doing the revolutionary thing that it's doing, but not being showy about it. that like that's sort of its approach to storytelling too. Like the very beginning of the game does like, you know, the sort of like Super NES version of a cinematic, right? Text
Mhm.
on screen, you know, these bespoke renderings of characters and like, you know, events happening. But then when you get into the game, no other story is presented in no other like story beat is presented in anything other than the normal sort of like Metroid gameplay. And yet it still manages to sometimes through environmental storytelling, but a lot of times through like incidents that are happening. Like I always think about the what's the name of it? It's like crocodile or something.
Crocomire?
The big, yeah, Crocomire. This big red like crocodile frog thing that you fight by like smashing it back into a pit of lava, and then its flesh melts from its bones.
Oh, so metal.
And
That
then
was so
it's so
sick. I
metal.
loved it.
And then its bony corpse like floats through a river of lava, and then the skeleton knocks down a wall and like lets out a last gasp as it tries to like kill you from beyond the grave. And just like dealing with like this bit of narrative of like here are the last moments of this creature's life. It's so much richer and so much fuller than any other kind of boss fight, because there's just this little bit of implied story, and you know that you can carry that over to like, you know, the ghost ship, and like restoring the power in there. Like that feels like a rich full narrative, and like the end of the game, of course, with the baby Metroid that is now enormous, and how it spares Samus and then rescues Samus, all happens within like the engine of the game and all without a word.
Mm-hmm. Or, yeah, I mean, piggybacking off of that, that even speaks to, like you said, those continuity things where a lot of those sections in the game, like the wrecked ship, that's from the first game. So so when you go back and Turian, sorry, when you go back and you see like the dead part of it, like all the derelict stuff, and then when you go down and you find out that the pirates, I don't know what they were thinking, but they built another base under that base. Like, let's just build it here. But yeah, the old one is the one that got destroyed, the wrecked ship.
Well, and you see, you know, a lot of the you know, the beginning of the original Metroid, you get to it pretty early in Super Metroid, right?
Mm-hmm.
With that part where you come down the elevator and it's all blue and you go left and get the morph ball.
Yeah.
That's
Windstar.
literally how Metroid starts.
Yep. So yeah, like you were saying, it's not very showy about it, but it's full of story if you know where to look. I also think it does a good job of subtly rewarding people who have played the old games, because while the map is different overall, there's a lot of times where if you've played it before, you go, you know what, I remember this. I wonder if you can go to X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times it works. So like you were saying, Patrick, about the blue area, you know, you remember, oh, when I was here last time, I went this way and I jumped over that, and lo and behold, it works the same way. So that's pretty interesting, and it's storytelling that rewards the player.
Yeah, well, and it's also like so cool, like when you first go down there, and you know you collect the morph ball, and then there's this like eye that opens up, and it's got this like, you know, light, this like floodlight that captures you, and it's just like something down here is spying on me, like something knows I'm here, and you just get that like sense of dread where you're like, oh no, I'm in trouble. But it doesn't, you know, it's not like there aren't like alarms on the screen or whatever. It's just, you know, so subtle in its storytelling. And I think it delivers something like that, you know, every like 20 minutes. It's the storytelling in this game is unmatched.
Speaking of the world, how did we feel about the map itself? The areas, the exploration, needing to tackle each area differently due to weather conditions or traversal needs or anything like that. How did that work for you guys? Anybody can go.
I'll just say that the world is like incredible. Like I love the design and all that. Like I mentioned that before, just with the design of everything was very good. But As far as the actual like layout of things, I was constantly lost. I was lost the entire game. At the end, like you beat what is it, the final like Metroid brain thing, whatever it is.
Mother
I
brain.
don't know what her name is, but
Mother Brain.
Mother Brain, yeah, that's the one. And it's like, all right, now escape, and I'm like these are all places I've been 100 times, and I should know how to get out, but I have no idea how to get out. Like I was like so lost. Looking at a map, I'm like, which way do I go? Which way do I go? I only have 3 minutes to do this. I at one point I even like looked at a guide to see if there was a shortcut or something, just to like double check. And it's like, oh, you should have plenty of time to get out. I think I got out and I had like 4 seconds left. I'm like, whoo, barely made that. I got stuck.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it was good. It was great. Like, yeah, I added to that, but it was just funny. Like the guide's like, oh, like you've traversed this 100 times. You should get out with plenty of time. And I'm going through and I'm like, oh no, like I don't know what's happening. But yeah, so it was amazing though, like because as many times as you do move around and even backtrack through areas and stuff like that, you still just, at least for me, I didn't get used to the layout of this place and I felt very lost, which I mean, ultimately like kind of falls right in line with what you've been saying with like the environmental storytelling that's going on. Like you put yourself in Samus's shoes and you're like, hey, you're alone on this planet that you've, barely recognize or whatever, and you're gonna be confused and lost and okay, what's going on, where am I going next, and like I think it's this way, second guessing yourself. You don't know what's going on, you're just on this planet. So yeah, I
it's funny
it.
that
I hated it, but at the same time it makes
exactly.
sense. It makes sense. Like
that's what I was gonna say, is that it can be that sort of that like push and pull where that one. I have played this game so many times that I effectively have like 80% of it memorized.
Yep.
But the only place that I do not have memorized is Meridia. And I get lost in the underwater labyrinth that is the sort of penultimate section of the game every time I play it. And I leave stuff behind there. I die there. And I know, like, it feels like I'm being crushed by the weight of this enormous ocean, and I know that that's effective, but I also hate it.
Oh man,
yeah, I feel like the world of this game, like aesthetically, is just absolutely incredible, and part of it for sure is that I grew up with the Super Nintendo look, the Super Nintendo sound. Like that just hits the pleasure centers of my brain. But this game does it so well. And I think I said this when we talked about A Link to the Past, but it's absolutely true for Super Metroid as well, in that I think Super Metroid has been so influential in not just like other video games, but especially in the indie game scene. And there are so many like Super Metroid likes. And so I feel like, and a lot of them, not only in mechanics, but like visually kind of harken back to Super Metroid. And so Super Metroid is timeless in a way that not very many other video games are, because so many video games borrow from Super Metroid. And you look back on it and you're just like, and yet so many video games borrow from it. And yet this one is still like the perfect example of what these games can be.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that Samus sprite, right? Like she just looks so cool all the time, and there are so many different like frames of animation for her, like running and jumping, turning around, jumping against the wall, flipping, whatever. That like I don't know, she seems so fully realized.
Oh man, it's so wild, and something I caught recently that I can't believe I never saw before. Whenever she's in like a boss fight or a stressful situation, if you watch her shoulders, they kind of go up and down a little bit more frequently, like she's breathing hard and fast. I thought that was so cool. I never saw that before. I think it was when you first fight, really was the first time I saw it recently. And right after the fight, when he flies off, you can just see her kind of doing like, it's like, wow, they thought about that way back when, dude. Just that attention to detail.
You remember how like that's something that we were talking about with Metroid Dread is like
Yes.
that they do such a good job of instilling personality in Samus by just like these little beats of animation, like before a boss fight, her like charging up, her beam before she's like going to take down, some big monster thing.
Yep.
And they obviously weren't able to like capture all of that in the Super Nintendo, but like it's close. They get part of the way there.
It's I don't know, technical marvel for the old Super Nintendo.
Yeah, I feel like the Metroid. Sorry, I just wanted to say like
No, go ahead.
the Metroid series is so cool to me, like just academically for that reason. When you see that like Nintendo attention to detail and polish applied to kind of like a atmosphere, a world design that they usually don't dabble in. This more like hardcore sci-fi. To see them like turning their attention and whatever all the polish that Nintendo is known for onto this kind of like unique atmosphere is it's really cool.
Yeah, agreed. I like that it's still focused on character though. Like they're not going to be like, here's how the technology of Samus's beams work, like they don't care about that, but like they want to show off her personality or the personalities of like the worlds and monsters, like they'll do that.
How does it work? Bird DNA. Don't worry about it. That's all you need.
She's part Birdman.
One of the biggest, specifically about Super Metroid, I think is the biggest jumps that help it jump into that super category is the expansion of her kit, as far as abilities, weapons, suits, and whatnot. How many different beams you have, super missiles, power bombs, the X-ray visor, all these different kind of weapons incorporate themselves. And I think that they help with easing that sense of tension that you were saying that you felt sometimes, Patrick, where not just the water, but like the weight of the game, the weight of having to explore this world on your own, you being able to slowly power scale with so many different armaments, I think is an achievement as far as the balance of it too. I don't think you get too many things too quickly. And by the end, in the beginning, you're timidly like, can I shoot this with my little lemon launcher? My little Mega Man gun. But by the end of the game, you're, speed boosting, space jumping, throwing like 4 or 5 super missiles at a door or an enemy. So I think they do a really good job. I don't know if anybody had any comments on, or if they felt similarly or differently about it. But I particularly enjoyed that feat.
Yeah. I like that too. I do think it's impressive. I did want to bring up like how the game makes you like use those abilities and the sort of like control scheme around like how you cycle through missiles, super missiles, power bombs, grapple beam, and the X-ray visor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That they're all on the select button, and if you're playing with a Switch Pro controller, that is a hard button to get over to, right?
If you're playing on Joy-Con, it sucks as well. I was playing handheld mode the whole time, and it's this little tiny minus button you gotta like try to find up there. I'm like, this is the worst. What the heck?
Well, and like there's no reason that like power bomb and super missile should be a different selection, because like you are in a ball when you're using one and you're not in a ball when you're using the other, so like that's a weird thing to have to do. And just like there's like that sort of coupled with like the how little detail there is on the map. I feel like those are the two ways in which like the game really shows its age, that like they didn't really have worked out how to like cycle between like different abilities on the fly, and like they don't really assist you in exploring that map at all. I'm also fascinated by the button layout of this game, because I frequently want to be able to run, jump, and shoot at the same time, and that's 3 different face buttons. And so I end up playing the game mostly like with my thumb on the bottom 2 buttons, and then my index finger kind of creeps around the front of the controller to hit the X button to shoot while I'm running and jumping with the other 2 buttons.
Oh my God.
How do you do it? How do you do it? How are you pushing 3 buttons at once?
I have my jump on B. I play with the SNES controller, by the way.
Yeah.
I have my jump on B. I have my run on Y, and I have my shoot on A.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a
remap the controls
Mario
little.
setup.
Can you?
Yeah.
You can customize the control on Switch.
You can on Super Nintendo.
In the game itself, like when you're starting the game, you have the option to choose between a couple of different control options.
Are you kidding me?
You can turn
I
moonwalk
I
on and
struggled
off.
the whole time.
The default
'cause
one is
default
crazy, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I mean, it in a way it makes sense if you just hear someone say it, like, "Oh, A is jump." Like, yeah, it makes sense, except for like the A button's on the side. It's like so many times I'd hit B, like trying to jump. I'm like, what's happening? No, sorry, wrong button. Shoot.
All right, hang on here. Now everybody likes to do this thing about, oh, the A button's not in the right place. They were the first ones that had the A button there. All right.
Oh, no,
everybody
I'm not.
else changed it.
I'm
Hey,
not
standards
saying
is
that it's in the
standards,
wrong
man.
place. I'm not saying it's in the wrong place. It just doesn't make sense. Like positionally, I don't care what label's on there. It just makes sense for the jump to be the bottom one. Like every console, whether it's Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, normally that's the jump button. So it's weird. This one's like, nah, we're gonna put it over on the right side just for fun.
Well, they're doing that so that I can run and jump and shoot
Yes.
at the same time.
Yeah, that's right.
They did it just for
I
you.
was doing a little sequence earlier today where it was like a long grapple thing, and just like making my way across it and trying to make my way across it as fast as I could. So I'm holding the run button, and I've got my index finger ready to push the X button, and then my middle finger is pushing the R button so that she's pointing the her
Patrick,
arm
how did you
cannon
play
at a
this?
diagonal.
I'm like doing this. I'm like, that doesn't make any.
Yeah.
It's the only way I don't know how else to push these
Gra-
buttons at the same time.
Grappling is the bane of my existence in this game.
It was rough. It was rough.
Grappling is rough. As soon as I get the space jump, that is the best feeling in the world.
Yes.
Getting the space jump is truly just like so triumphant.
You're invincible.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
you
but I
need screw
do
attack, but
right. Yeah. But I do love like at the end of the game being able to run through areas that gave me so much trouble in the beginning, and that feeling of like, oh, holy crap, I really have powered up a lot. Like I agree with you. I think it scales really nicely.
Oh man, I'm trying to process like how Patrick plays this game. You have just rocked me, dude. Just trying to think about how you.
Adrian, I've been playing it this way for 30 years, okay?
You played it the whole... Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh.
What?
You're tougher than me.
You are doing this on the Pro Controller?
I was doing it on the Pro Controller today, but I do it on the Super NES controller, yeah.
Well, it feels like so much harder on the Pro Controller because it's so meaty.
Yeah.
Like,
It works out okay. It made it impossible for me to play this on my 3DS. Which I've attempted to like. My 3DS for a while was a Super NES machine. I used to play like Super Mario World on it like yearly, maybe even more frequently than that. And I love Super Metroid, so I play it a lot. But like, I can't hold the 3DS that way.
Hand over on the screen.
It doesn't work.
One thing I do want to go back to is, Patrick, you mentioned the map just like not really doing much lifting at all as far as being a map is concerned. I was shocked when I like looked at the map. I'm like, it doesn't even tell you if there's doors in the room. Like I'm used to like all the Prime games. It's like, oh, there's, they have different colors and if it's locked or unlocked yet, or if you, or if you've opened it before, that's what it is. If you open it or not. And this one is just like, nah, here's just a bunch of squares and rectangles and good luck. It's like, what? What's the point of this map? Like, I guess you kind of get a sense of what direction you got to go in, but you can go all the way down a hallway and then there's just a dead end, like nothing down there. Or it goes like down, or like you don't know which direction you're going to head unless you just remember. So, that map is completely useless.
The map is no good.
I think it's just same, like how Patrick was talking about, it's inexperience with that kind of thing where it got better over time. Like if you play Fusion is a much better map. They have all the areas marked with the different doors and the different colored doors and where things are. little circles if something's in the room, like a power up or something like that. So they learned and improved, but this was just the foundation and growing pains of having never had to, design for this kind of genre or this kind of space. So
it's the first one of these games with a map.
Right.
Insanely, Metroid 2 on the Game Boy has no map.
There's only so much room on that screen. Even if they put a map, it's gonna be
fair
a
play.
quarter of it.
Pokemon had a map. Pokemon had a map.
Pokemon's map was a whole separate screen. Did you want to stop and then do that and then go back?
Pokemon also came out after Super Metroid. So
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's fair. Wow, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Game Boy had a long life.
It did. Some say too long.
They're wrong.
I would never say that.
I want to see what you guys are going to say to that. Yeah, man. This game is such a hallmark title for me. I don't know how to explain it. To me, it's a while it does have its not unfinished, but I'll say infantile design systems or different things that could be better or that were just victims of inexperience. I think overall as a package, it is a masterclass in game design. I know we say that a lot about Super Nintendo games and a lot of Super Nintendo games, but Nintendo was just in their bag at the time. I don't know what else to tell you. Like there were very few other companies that were on that caliber, and even today are still on that caliber.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the fact that these IPs still exist and that they're commonly copied, as far as like similar gameplay elements to X, Y, and Z. Like there's a reason like why we keep saying that they're the best of the best. It's because they are like,
right.
There's a reason everyone kind of like, oh, I'm going to take these types of things like there's a whole genre, Metroidvania type games, like because, it's a fantastic game. So yeah.
Adrian, I want to hear. I know that I've been on shows with you where you've spoken about like your personal experience with Super Metroid and like how it came into your life before. But I'd love to just like hear it again because I know you have such a personal relationship to this game.
Oh yeah. So this game is I have my old man to thank for bringing this game into my life. Right. So. Like I've said before, I'm sure to exhaustion. My old man is a major reason as to why I'm so into games today. Some of my earliest memories are my parents used to do shift work, and we would have to get up, super early in the morning and go to our grandma's house because our parents had to go to work. But in that little window of time between getting up and having to leave, my dad would cram as much a time of like the original NES Zelda as he could before we had to leave the house. And it just kind of spiraled from there where we ended up getting, an SNES. And then I got to watch him play through Super Metroid, through Link to the Past, through all these different things. And, so on and so forth until here we are today. I'm on a podcast talking about it, 20 some odd years later. But yeah, I would say that not only Super Metroid being an excellent game is like the cherry on top, but that game really represents it is a good memory of me and my dad. I mean, he's still here with us. You know what I mean? But when I think of that game and when I think of Samus and when I think of Metroid, I think of him. And I think of those core memories that made me who I am today as far as my relationship with games and with, different art styles or different art in general. So that's why it's my personal favorite game of all time. So
yeah, that's so cool.
That's amazing.
Awesome. Yeah. So I know, and here's the other thing is, I was gonna say, since we have been talking about the Holy Trinity, I wanted to see what you guys thought or where you guys' heads are at, or if you have any kind of different. In my personal opinion, having played through pretty much all of the, I guess you could say, marquee Nintendo titles on the systems over the years, I think with this generation with the Switch, I think we finally have a set of the Trinity games, Mario, Zelda, Metroid, that equal, if not are better than the Super Nintendo predecessors at this point.
Do we have a Switch Metroid game? Like, you want to count
Dread.
the? Oh yeah, there we go. For whatever reason, I was stuck on Prime Remaster. Yeah, no, you're right.
Dread was fantastic. Dread was fantastic because for a dummy like me, I could get through it. I know a lot of people complain about how easy it was, but I'm like, no, I was able to get through it, and I didn't have to pull up a guide all the time. It was great.
Because you can raise an Odyssey to Super Mario World. You could raise Breath of the Wild to Link to the Past, and you could raise Dread to Super Metroid. And in my opinion, I think those are equal to, if not better than, the predecessors in quality. I think this is the first time in Nintendo history that we can say that, or that I would say that. I don't know
within one generation. You're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah, my gut is that I totally agree with you on Zelda. I think that for sure. I think Dread feels like in a way that like Metroid Prime, Super Metroid ended up not really being. Metroid Dread feels like a milestone that Nintendo intends to build off of. Whereas like, Super Metroid happened and then nothing in the Metroid series for a while. And then Odyssey, I feel like I loved Super Mario Odyssey, and I think it's an amazing game. I think here's what I was gonna say, but it's wrong. What I was gonna say is that we'll have to see what the next like 3D Mario is to see if like Super Mario Odyssey is kind of like a milestone moment for the Mario series. But that's not true, because looking back at Super Mario World, there was never a Mario game like that ever again. You know what I mean? It was like a one and done. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to argue that this was not the best generation for these like 3 series since Super Nintendo. That's an interesting point.
Is there a series? Let's try this. Is there a series that it was better served by these super expanding outside of these 3 that was better served by the Super NES than the Switch?
Star Fox.
Star Fox, F-Zero, Kid Icarus. There is no Kid Icarus on Super NES. I take that back.
Yeah, F-Zero. Yeah, because there's no Switch F-Zero. Otherwise, I would have said GX. GX is better than the Super Nintendo, the one for GameCube.
I guess I guess it sort of has to be. Yeah.
Tropical Freeze is better than.
I agree with that.
Donkey Kong Country.
Donkey Kong Country is pretty dang good, guys.
It is, but that's
I haven't played Tropical Freeze.
That's how good the new Donkey Kong Countries are.
That's your Tropical Freeze rules.
That's one of my favorite games is Donkey Kong Country.
I'm telling you, dude, play the new ones. Like, especially Tropical Freeze. It's the way we talk about those other games. That's this game. That's how good it is. I can't think of any series that the Super version was better. Oh, no, wait, that was Wii. I was gonna say Punch Out.
Wii Punch Out's pretty good though. I mean,
it is.
We got Little Mac back. Like that's important. That's better than the Super NES version.
I haven't played Crafted World, but Yoshi.
Now, are we counting Mario World
point.
2 as a Yoshi game or as a Mario game?
Yeah,
come on.
I think so.
Come on, it's a Yoshi game. Come on.
Okay. All right. Look, it's Super Mario World 2 : all right. I need to know where we were standing at. I guess
sound like a marketing guy.
Yeah, I guess Yoshi would be the one.
Yeah, great pick, Mark. I said great pick, Mark.
Yeah, that was a good one.
But the fact that we're really having to like rack our brains just shows how crazy the Switch generation has been. Where like they've just been hitting it out of the park game after game.
It's a phenomenal lineup. It's the first full, like if you stretched it out, would be if somebody argued that this was as good as the Super Nintendo lineup, I couldn't argue with you.
Yeah.
Just based on the quality of the games alone. We've gotten crazy Fire Emblems. We've gotten, I was going to say Pokemon, but that's not true. Zeldas, Metroids, Marios, just across the board. They've been hitting home runs.
Mm-hmm. I guess Super Mario RPG I prefer to Origami King, which I haven't played.
That's, yeah. I don't think there's been a RPG, maybe Superstar Saga, that got close.
Oh, I think the first two Paper Mario games are probably about on par. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because Origami King was all right.
Yeah,
it wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't great.
It doesn't have Mallow.
That's true.
Who cares?
That's already. Yep. You know what? -5 points.
Yep. Give me Mallow.
Yeah. No, I was noodling on that one day because I was thumbing around looking through games on the Switch on the home screen, and I noticed that we got all three of those new entries, and they're all pretty much in their own way like really phenomenal games. And I think the last time we've had that good of a set of three was the Super Nintendo. So I was just curious where you guys' heads were at.
Yeah, well, I think we could also extend that to Kirby, right? Because like Kirby Superstar, like that's what it's like a seminal Super NES game, and the Forgotten Land is a better Kirby game.
Yeah, same deal. They've upped it. Every major franchise that has made an appearance. Man, I wish we got an F-Zero game though. I don't know what the hold up is on that.
There's the rumor that they're remastering the GameCube one for release.
GX?
Yeah.
Please.
That's the rumor.
That game is so hard, but it's so good. It's so difficult, especially when you're at top speed. You have to have like all your attention faced on it, or else you're gonna crash and burn. Because those turns come at you at like 300 miles an hour.
They're too fast. I've aged out of it, I think. I think I'm too old to have the reaction time to play F-Zero anymore.
Garrett, you were gonna say something before. Do you remember what it was? Or
oh yeah, before you posed the question about the trilogy there. I just wanted to mention, like, we haven't talked at all about the soundtrack.
Oh, that was where I was headed.
Okay, good, because the music in this game is incredible.
Banger.
Like, I honestly I'd be fine with just letting my Switch to sit and play background music. Just like go load up a save somewhere and just listen in, because it varied room to room, world to world, like certain enemies around you, like the boss battles, like everything. Oh man, it was just fantastic. I don't necessarily have like a favorite track off the top of my head, but like overall, like I was even just surprised by that as well. Like how, like, oh man, like all the way through, it was just phenomenal. So yes,
from the title screen,
yes,
it starts going off.
and my memory is that if you like revisit areas and the environment has changed, like the soundtrack changes with it. So the soundtrack kind of like evolves and grows as the game progresses, and it's another one of those things that it just like quietly doesn't draw attention to itself,
right,
but is just so cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. Several years ago, Mark and I did a tournament where we determined the best piece of Nintendo music. I don't remember what. It was a Link to the Past, like the main theme. But one of the entries that went pretty far was the Metroid piece, which is called like Brinstar, like with Overgrowth or something like that, and it's that like
it's so funky. It's so good,
so funky, and like it doesn't. there are a lot of times where like the music engages like the two modes you would expect that it would, right? Where it's like here's a like a fanfare or something like kind of heroic and like dark. And there's that mode, and then there's the like creepy sci-fi mode. And then something like that Brinstar music is like totally off the map, but like feels right for whatever reason.
Or when it wants to get creepy, when it's when you get to a boss and the piano is just piano for the first part of it, that do 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 do.
Yes,
so good,
so freaking good, man.
Are you gentlemen familiar with the band Metroid Metal?
Hit me to it.
Okay, you need to look them up now. They've got an album and an LP out.
Really?
Or an EP, and they cover Metroid songs in like heavy metal. The ensemble is a heavy metal group, and they rule. They're so good, and it's something that I'll put on all the time, and I wish Nintendo would get with these guys and like put a Metroid Metal arrangement on one of their games.
Oh, dude, sick!
That sounds like it would have fit right in really well with Dread. Like the fact that they didn't have something like that in there. But yeah, okay, I'll have to listen to some of the stuff later.
I just bookmarked it.
There you go. Everyone, check out Metroid Metal.
Yes,
that's gonna be awesome. Well, fellas, I think we are getting ready to wrap it up here. Did anybody have any final thoughts on the old Super Metroid game for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, TM?
The only thing that I want to say, because this is an obsession of mine, is I feel like whenever, like when I played Fusion when that was released on Nintendo Switch Online again, and then playing Super Metroid, it's like I understand. It's like all the clues are there as to how we got to Other M at some point.
Yeah.
The pieces are there and you're like, oh, okay, I understand this progression and how we ended up at Other M, which is a little bit of a disaster. And like, because
we call that an Elseworld story these days.
Yeah.
It's like Star
Everything
Wars,
is
the
canon.
legends.
Everything is canon.
I refuse.
So like, because Other M, notoriously has so much voiceover, but like, and in Super Metroid, you get a little bit, not voiceover, but you get a little bit of like Samus telling you what's going on through text at the beginning of the game. And then that gets elaborated on in Fusion, where there's like a lot more moments, she's riding an elevator or something, and you get more of that. And then that like crescendos in Other M is just fascinating to me to see how like, oh yeah, they just like kind of like embellished it a little bit, and how this like seed that worked so well in Super Metroid, how they ended up where they went in Other M, and how it like, I can understand the thought process that like got us there, even though if the end result is a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
I would agree with you. I think, however, it's one-upped by Dread. The way that I think it's a better progression, like how you were saying, is you get a little bit in Super, then you get a lot, right, in Fusion, and then in Dread, I think that's the culmination to where I don't think anybody was expecting her to speak in that that one cutscene where it was only a few lines, but you know what that was akin to, Patrick? That was akin to in Super Metroid, the last Metroid is in captivity. That's the reaction I had when she spoke in Metroid Dread. I was not expecting that. Right.
Yeah, but like I do see your point, Adrian, that like that feels like that's the arc that sort of like makes sense of like Super to Fusion to Dread, like 3 to 4 to 5, that like that's a sort of presentational progression, and then there's just this bizarre spike at Other M where they're like,
let me narrate
make it a
everything.
movie. Yeah, they're like Metal Gear Solid has convinced us that games are different now. We don't know how to do that, but we're gonna try.
I had toast for breakfast this morning as I thought about the baby Metroid.
That's
No.
right.
Don't need it.
That's right.
Garrett, any final thoughts for you?
Just that I really enjoy this game, and I think out of the three, this one's my favorite. So
Whoa.
I'll
That's
take it.
awesome. That's amazing.
like I obviously have a very huge like nostalgia spot for Super Mario World, because that's what I grew up with. That's what I played with my parents. Like that's it. But I don't know. I thoroughly enjoyed all the way through like playing this game. Other than like you're like, yeah, at the beginning like there's a little bit of a lull, but like once I figured things out and finally gave up on just doing it alone, like all right, I'm gonna get into a guide. Like yeah, ultimately like the gameplay and then the story and everything, the feel, like having like that kind of sci-fi horror feel to it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is right up my alley. Like the other two games are incredible, but this one is very much more my my style, what I like in a game. So yeah, I think this is my favorite of the three.
I'm right there with
That's
you, my
awesome.
man.
Very cool.
Well, folks, here we are. The end of an era or a season, whatever you want to call it. Patrick, Mark, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us 3 times. I don't know why you keep coming back, but hey, we must be doing something right.
They were
I don't know why you keep
contractually
asking
obligated
us. I mean,
They did sign
Yeah.
the paperwork saying they'd come back. So
Yeah. Sad to learn that this is the last time, but glad for the opportunity.
yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Anytime. Who's to say we might not do a one-off? Like you said, there's still a couple of slots left that we may need to talk about. Everybody, thank you so much for hanging out and supporting us for these past 22 episodes, almost 2 years of Super Gamer Book Club Volume 2. I couldn't have done it without you. I appreciate everybody who's listened, who's downloaded, who's watched, who supported us on Patreon to get them early. However you came across it, everybody who has interacted with it really matters, because it doesn't seem like it, but it was a lot of work, trying to fit this in between our regular content and other things that we were doing at the time. So anybody who's ever stopped to take a listen or to check it out, it's definitely appreciated. Stay tuned. Garrett is, going to be revving the wheels up here soon on our next thing that we're going to be doing after this. It's going to be a little bit of a different vibe, but
Ooh,
I think that you'll like it. I think that you'll dig it. It's something that people have been we've been trying to get people interested in, and we did the first episode of it as a tease to let people know it's up there.
Up currently on Patreon as of today. So the very first episode of Super Later Boys. So who knows? Maybe that will come more regularly here. So
so from me, again, a heartfelt thank you. Thank you to every guest that we've had on throughout this entire season. You guys helped make a world of difference. I love having all the different perspectives that we were able to have on all these games that some moved us to tears. Some were musical masterpieces. We ran the gamut, and I couldn't be more happy with how this season turned out. So until next time, thank you again, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. We're out of here. Peace. And that's a wrap. Thanks for hanging out with us. I hope you enjoyed the episode. As a reminder, if you want to catch any of the new episodes the first Friday that they come out of every month, you can find them only on our Patreon. That's patreon.com/supergamerboys. And don't forget to check out our main episodes too. Those are pretty cool if I say so myself. All right, we're out of here. Peace.